This is the Peugeot e-2008, a new electric version of the 2008, which looks fantastic, but is quite expensive and has less range than lots of its rivals. So is it worth buying? Let me tell you in this review. G'day, I'm Matt. This channel's called The Right Car, and the e-2008 could be the right car for you if you're okay with shorter than average EV driving range, and you're also okay with buying a car that's, well, already superseded. There's a facelifted version of this car out in Europe, and we will be seeing it at some point in the future, but this is the starting point for Peugeot when it comes to passenger cars and EV driving. So is it worth your money? Stay tuned, we'll find out. The Peugeot e-2008 is the equal most affordable European electric car that you can get in Australia right now. It and the Cupra Born both start at just under $60,000 before on-road costs, and that means that it is, well, pretty decent value, but it's not necessarily the best. I'm going to tell you a few of the more affordable alternatives that you might want to consider if you are looking for something that is a little bit cheaper, let's say. Now, it does come with a bunch of really good standard equipment, including LED lights, 18-inch alloy wheels. You also get a nice interior trim with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, big touchscreen media system, and a 3D look instrument cluster as well. Now, it does have the Peugeot iCockpit, which some people hate. I kind of like it, but I'll show you that in the interior section. It also gets really nice seat trim with green highlights, which is a bit interesting, especially on a car that's blue on the outside. Anyway, let's talk about competitors. When it comes to alternatives to the Peugeot e-2008, well, all of them have longer EV driving range. So if that is an important consideration for you, then listen up, because I've got some really good alternatives. First off is the Cupra Born, which is priced identically to this car, and it has more than 500 kilometers of claimed EV driving range. It's also a lot more fun to drive than this car. I think the Cupra Born looks better and drives better and has more range. So it's a really good alternative to this. Another option you might want to consider is the MG4. Now, it has a much broader range of options available to you, including an entry-level version that starts at less than 40 grand, and the top spec one, which has heaps more EV driving range than this and has a lot of standard inclusions as well, is less money than this. It's got 530 k's of range for 55 grand or thereabouts. So if that matters to you, then maybe check out the MG4, because it's great, but it isn't a small SUV. If you are looking for a small SUV that's a very good EV, try the BYD Atto 3. Hit the link up there and you'll be able to check out my review of that car. I think it's fantastic value. It's maybe not the most refined thing in overall terms, but hey, I reckon there's a good reason that so many people are buying it, and it's got more to do with just having plenty of them available. So it could be right for you, but let me know in the comments section if you choose any of those, or if you've got a better alternative that I haven't listed. I'd love to hear from you. The Peugeot e-2008 is a pretty small SUV, just on 4.3 meters long, so it's urban friendly. And there's nothing really to differentiate it from the petrol powered versions of the 2008, apart from this color coded grille, which matches the paint color on the body of the car, obviously. And then you get these little E badges as well. And obviously it's electric. So does that have any impact on the boot space? Let me show you. Peugeot says that it didn't want to make things feel very different for the electric versions of the 2008 compared to the petrol versions. So it's got the same size boot, in fact. Now, it does have a false floor here, so you can remove that if you wish. And then you'll notice that there is a bit more space in there, enough room for your charge cables, but underneath the boot floor, you won't find a spare wheel. It's just a tire repair kit. Lots of EVs don't have spare wheels, and that's why for most Australians, they might not be right for them. But it really depends on what your needs are. Still, pretty practical boot space. Now, I mentioned the Peugeot iCockpit layout. It's this weird sort of design where you have a small steering wheel that sits low in your lap and you look over the top of it to the instrument cluster rather than look through the wheel at the instrument cluster, which is the normal way of doing things. But look, this has been around for a while now and I really like it. Some people absolutely hate it and they will not be able to live with it. But for me, it makes it feel, well, just a bit more fun and a bit more enjoyable to drive. And especially when you do have these nice instruments like in this car with the holographic 3D look effect, it really does, well, kind of feel futuristic and fun in my mind. Now you've also got this touchscreen media system up here. It does have all the functionality that you would expect, although you do have to do quite a bit of it through these keys down below. So you've got your fan controls down here, but you have to actually interact with the screen to change the temperature and that sort of stuff. So it isn't perfect, but it's better than some of the other interpretations of touchscreenness that I've seen in other cars in recent times. Look, you will get used to it. It just takes a little bit of time. Now, when it comes to storage, it's pretty good in here. You've got a couple of cup holders. In fact, big enough cup holders to fit a takeaway cup, which is nice to see. There's a little storage caddy here and another one here where you can flip down and close that as well if you want to hide things away. You've got bottle holders in the doors too, and it does feel pretty special in here. The material finishes are great. Now, when it comes to the seats, you've got leather and Alcantara finishing with this beautiful stitching on the inlays of the seats and also on the edges. That green stitching runs around the top of the dash and onto the steering wheel as well. Plus, there's heating for both front seats, but the driver also gets massage function and they also get electric seat adjustment, whereas this one's manual. So it's not perfect for the passenger, but it's designed for driving. So I think that's an okay compromise. And I forgot to mention also in the pricing section, all versions come with this big glass roof too, which is nice. And it does make things feel a bit lighter in here because when it's closed and the dark headliner, it sort of just all makes it feel a bit dark inside. It's only a little SUV. All right, let's check out the back seat. Now, I'm an above average sized Australian male, and you'll see that this seat is set for my driving position, and I've got enough knee room here, I've got enough foot room. It's just headroom that's a bit tight because of that glass roof. I just feel like it's encroaching on my space a little bit, but it's not too bad. What isn't great is that there are no rear directional air vents, so if you have kids, it might not be the ideal situation. There are ISOFIX points and 3 top tether points if you do have kids, and I can tell you from experience, you can easily fit a rearward facing baby capsule and still have someone in front pretty comfortably, so that's nice to know. Now, you've got USB ports down here as well, bottle holders in the doors, no flip down armrests with cup holders though, so that might play into your considerations, but honestly, it's a pretty good space for a small SUV. The Peugeot e-2008 in this current version has 100 kilowatts and 260 Newton meters from a front mounted electric motor. Now, it's all going through the front wheels, so that can be an issue if you do find a slippery surface, but it is pretty good at getting the power down. Now, keep in mind that if you choose sport mode, you'll be able to access all of that power and torque, but if you choose normal mode, it's 80 kilowatts and 220 Newton meters, or if you choose the eco mode, 60 kilowatts and 180 Newton meters. So it really does dull down the performance depending on which mode you drive in. Obviously, if you use sport mode a lot, you're going to use a lot more battery as well. This version of the Peugeot e-2008 comes with a 50 kilowatt hour battery pack, which offers a range of about 330 k's of WLTP rated driving. So that means you should be able to do about 330 k's across a mix of different driving scenarios. And look, 330 k's is not a lot considering the money that's being asked here. And there's an updated version of this car coming soon, which will have more than 400 k's of EV driving range because of a bigger battery pack. So that might be something you want to keep in mind, but I would say that for most people, 330 k's should be enough for just an urban runaround at least. Anyway, let's talk about charging. So you've got AC and DC charging available. AC at up to 11 kilowatts. Now, you'll need 3-phase power at home in order to get 11 kilowatts. But it should be able to do a full charge in about 5 hours. Obviously, if you only have a 7 kilowatt wall box at home, it's going to take a little bit longer, more like 7 or 8 hours probably. And when it comes to DC charging, there's 100 kilowatt capability here. So it should be able to do an 80% charge in something like 30 minutes. So that's pretty good to see. Also, you can pre-program timing, so you can set a specific timer if you do want to charge at a specific time overnight. So what is this e-2008 like to drive? Well, you won't be surprised to learn that it is very different to the petrol 2008, but it's also kind of similar in a few different ways as well. So let me talk about the differences. Obviously, it's electric, so it has very different characteristics in terms of power down. It does have, well, heaps of grunt, especially if you put it in sport mode. It might seem like 100 kilowatts isn't very much, but this is a tiny little car, and even though it is a fair bit heavier than the petrol version, it still gets up and boogies. It is quick. Now, in normal driving mode, it is a little bit more sedate, and I think that that's going to be suitable for a lot of people anyway. And I drove it in eco mode, but only very briefly because it is really quite dull in that sort of mode. There's also a regenerative braking mode, so you hit the B button down here on the shifter, and that will allow you to basically regain more energy that you might have potentially lost. It isn't like single pedal driving like some EVs, so if you're expecting that, don't expect that. For urban driving, I think that this is a pretty good little car, although I will say that I don't think that the reversing camera is as good as it should be. It does have a 180-degree view for reversing, which means that basically it fills in as you're reversing the space around you on the screen, and it's not very good. It's not very reassuring when it comes to parking. So other ways that it's very similar to the regular 2008 is the steering. It's got very much the same sort of steering feel. It's direct, it's agile, it's pretty fun to drive. But I will say that it's also something like 300 kilos heavier than a petrol 2008. And one of the best attributes of the petrol 2008 is that it's light and it feels light. But this car does not feel light. It feels a bit chunky. So it isn't necessarily as sprightly or as lively feeling, especially when you change direction in corners, and the ride is a little bit more lumpy and bumpy as a result of that too. It isn't as forgiving when it comes to encountering bumps and lumps in the road surface. So look, it's not perfect, but I still think it's a pretty good little SUV. Today, I haven't really been doing what I usually do when I drive a car for a week. This has just been a launch drive review. So I had to drive on the roads that Peugeot had chosen for us as a guest of Peugeot at this event. And look, it has been pretty surprisingly efficient over the roads that we drove on. It was a mix of urban and sort of twisty fun roads as well. So on screen, you'll see the official efficiency figure for the e-2008, and look, that's okay for a front motor electric small SUV, and in the real world you'll see what I saw on your screen now, and I was pretty impressed with that. That's pretty efficient for real world driving, including a few traffic snarls and that sort of stuff as well. So yeah, it's not too bad at all. Although I will mention that I was driving it in normal mode most of the time, not eco, and with the brake mode on some of the time as well. Petrol versions of the 2008 achieved the maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating in 2019, but there is no EV rating just yet. Now, it does come with the same standard safety equipment. There's autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. There's also blind spot monitoring, but not rear cross traffic alert. There's active lane keeping assistance and adaptive cruise control. And you do get that 180-degree top-down camera view, so not a proper panoramic 360-degree camera. Front and rear parking sensors are standard though. Plus, if you were to have an accident, there's a thing called multi-collision assist, which will basically stop you from careening into something else if you were in a crash. And when it comes to airbag coverage, there are 8 dual front, front side, full length curtain and rear side airbags as well, which is nice to see in a car this size. Just like the petrol versions of the Peugeot 2008, the e-2008 comes with a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, but there's an 8-year 160,000k battery warranty as well. Now, when it comes to servicing, this car does have some pretty nice perks, including a prepaid service plan available for either 3 years or 5 years. 3 years will cost you $600, $200 a year. 5 years will cost you $1,000, so $200 a year, which isn't bad when it comes to servicing a little car like this. The Peugeot e-2008 is a pretty convincing small EV SUV, but it's not going to be right for everyone. That's the biggest thing with this car. It's only going to be right for a few people, but that's Peugeot in Australia right now. Anyway, tell me what you think in the comments section. Would you choose it, or would you wait for the facelift? Would you choose something completely different? I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't already, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.